Thank you.
Kia ora tātou, and welcome back to our Palmerston City Council council meeting of 1 September 2021. In part one, councillors, and welcome to those online as well. We now go to number 16, which is our quarterly performance and financial report for the quarter ending the 30th of June 2021. I'll get our CFO, Stuart McKinnon, to run through that. It's page 223 of your papers, councillors, and it's a fairly lengthy one. So over to you, Stuart.
Yeah, good afternoon all. I'm happy to largely take it as read. I guess the report kind of highlights what's happened throughout the year. Beginning of the year was a fair amount of austerity gone on by officers, and we were running a reasonably strong surplus. And then when it became apparent that we were going to be okay from a financial perspective, we tried to up the work. And so quite a lot of contracted services provided in the last couple of months, and a bit of an uptake in expenditure, which is probably a good thing. We've ended the year with a surplus of $4 million in total. I do recall a question last year around what happens to that surplus. The surplus money goes towards debt repayment. And so, yeah, that's the story there. From a capital spending point of view, probably not as much as we wanted. But, you know, we said every time we do this quarterly report, we talk about the resource shortage that we're facing as a city, both from a staffing perspective and a contracting perspective. That's probably all I was going to say. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Stuart. You probably beat me to the first one, which is around what happens to the surplus, and obviously that goes back into a debt repayment. Can I just ask, as of today, where are we at?
You can ask, and what I'll do is that one of the team will send me a text or email me, and I'll get back to it in a minute.
Yeah, no, we always used to have that on hand. And I know some of your officers will know to the cent what that is. Just helpful to get a snapshot of that at the moment. Plenty of questions, so I'll go to those. Councillor Hancock.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Stuart. I just got one question, just in terms of page 257, the Healthy Home Standard. Some new requirements there. We've got some work scheduled for 21-22 and 22-23. Can you just give us some understanding of the scope of that work, and perhaps how many tenants we may have affected by that?
Hopefully we have Bryce on board to answer that.
Bryce, are you there?
Doesn't look like he's there, Mr. Mayor, but we could get Sarah if she's on board. Otherwise, I will take that question and we'll get them online as soon as we can and get that answered.
Okay. Sarah, do you want to have a crack at it, or to leave it for Bryce a little bit later?
Bryce is just having issues connecting, but he should be online shortly.
Okay, we'll go to the next one and then come back to that one. Councillor Hancock, is there anything else to your question?
No, just one question. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all right, we'll move through to Councillor Hapara.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. My question's on page 295, and it's about the FTE count. Just want to know which departments that mainly refers to.
Yeah, the short answer to that is all of them. And I actually think the finance team's winning from a percentage perspective. There is a general shortage of staff across the board.
Yes, if I can just add to that, there are vacancies in all units, and Stuart is right, percentage-wise, the most is felt in finance. So what you are seeing is a shortage of skill capability across the whole, a broad range of sectors. And this isn't just in the professions either, this is in admin and support staff as well.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question, which is page 10 of the report or page 237 of the border papers. Just the Manawatu River Shared Pathway Ashurst City, I guess, alert or what's next for it says that a briefing will be held in August. And I was just wanting some clarification on that, because some of the alerts seemed to refer to past tense in terms of what's happened or what's coming up. So I wasn't sure when that was making reference to in particular, because there was certainly, even prior to alert levels changing, there was no hold for a briefing of that nature.
Through the chair, I think that the briefing is in the context of the broader, some of the broader issues about access there. I'm not sure if we've got Kathy online or not.
Yes, I am. I am online, but I'm sorry, I'm not able to provide any more update on that.
So Sarah, could I get somebody to reply to that, along with some of the other questions that have been asked in earlier reports?
Yeah, that one is around access and some of the legal issues that we're having with access. It is a broad what that briefing is around.
I guess it says an elected member briefing will be held in August, but there was nothing on the workshops and briefing schedule, and there's a process that gets undertaken for staff to put or to request a briefing or a workshop, and that hasn't, as one of the people who sign off on those, that hasn't come through.
In that case, I apologise for it not coming through. Clearly the date is out of date, but our intent was to brief elected members about some of the legal issues and proposals that we have for progressing.
Okay, so the status is that there will be a briefing with elected members.
We would, yes,
in the future.
In the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Naylor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. A couple from me. Just also on page 295, the FTE count graph there, it refers to the high number of vacancies, and I'm just wondering what the actual number of vacancies currently in the organisation is.
Patrick, can you give the exact figure?
Yeah, so as of last week, the number of vacancies was 140. This is creeping up for two reasons. One, we've just started a new LTP. Round, and so there are no.
Patrick, your sound is going.
Hello.
Are you there, Patrick?
Yes, sorry, I am. I got kicked out just as I was trying to be useful. But as I said, as of last week, we had 140 vacancies in the organisation, and that is one of the factors that's resulted in that creeping up has been the number of new positions that were approved in the LTP, which we're also trying to recruit for at this time.
Okay, thanks for that. Just on that, I guess looking at that graph, to me, there's a number of things that are useful to identify, and one is actually how the average FTE count compares to the funded FTE, and obviously that would make it clearer what the gap is in terms of vacancies. Would there be an issue, Stuart, I guess this would be directed to you, in actually adding another component to that graph to show us the budgeted FTE and the actual FTE so that we can see what the gap is and whether that's closing or whether that's increasing?
Yeah, I answered with some trepidation because it is possible. However, and we've had this comment before, it's a pretty fluid number in terms of what we do, because occasionally we bring in contractors and consultants, and occasionally we hire staff, and we use our own workforce when we have the capacity to do so, and when we don't have the capacity to do so. So while we do have a budgeted FTE number and we can put that on, I'm just I guess cautioning about the usefulness of that as a statistic.
Okay, I mean, personally, I would find it useful. I mean, if we were to ask for that, can we just do that through this process, or would that require a recommendation formally?
I guess that's up to you. It's something we could do.
Yeah, that would be useful. Thank you. Just moving to the next page, the councillor training budget, the full year budget spend was 24,000 against a full budget of 34,000. So we spent about 71% of the budget in that year. In terms of elected members who perhaps didn't get to have any professional development in that financial year and were turned down based on lack of budget, I'm just wondering if there's a better way of forecasting that budget to ensure that more elected members are able to utilise that, or is there a reason why it's so much different to perhaps what was forecast a few months back? I'm not sure if Hannah would be able to answer that, or someone else.
I would need to go back and have a look at the figures. It may have just been when the invoicing came in over the financial year, because I was tracking it month by month. Okay, and the outline there of councillors that have attended conferences, that can't be the full year, I'm assuming, because it only shows 7 councillors out of 16 having had. It's just that quarter. It's just the quarter. Okay, thank you. Yep, that's all from me. Thank you.
Just on the back of that, have we always reported councillor training like this?
That was the resolution of council 2 quarters back. So this is the 3rd time we've done it. Okay, all right, I must have missed it. And just in terms of the FTEs, what is our FTE count, including the vacancies?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's 670, slightly above 670 from recollection. My only trepidation is I can't remember what the increased FTEs that were approved in the LTP have brought it up to.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Questions are around page 265, which is the KPIs around the wastewater activity. Just wanted to understand at the bottom there's commentary about a non-compliance in terms of discharge of nitrogen into the river. Could we just get an overview of that in terms of why those actually happened, and especially why they were sustained over 2 quarters?
Shall I take that one? Through the chair, the report is sustained over 2 quarters. I believe that we mentioned this before, that our issues are with flow and mixing. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Our issues are with flow and the low water flow mixing, and the fact that there's a sand bank, well, a gravel bank occurring in the area which makes mixing very difficult. So in low flows in summer, we have had issues mixing, which have led to that nitrate level being higher than our legal requirement. My understanding is that the annual flow means that our compliance is assessed annually, so it rolls over.
Thank you, Sarah, for that summary. I guess understanding that it's as much or perhaps more a river issue than anything else. What can we do about that so that if we're faced with similar weather and flow conditions in this coming year, that we won't become repeat offenders?
Through the chair, there's a piece of work going on, really very much supported by the BPO work. There's a piece of work going on with Horizons and with iwi at the moment to potentially remove some of that gravel so that we get better mixing for the short term. We know that the BPO project will be our long-term solution to that issue, and significantly, if the discharge does go into the river, significantly improve the discharge into the river. But short term, we're working with Horizons and Rangatani on whether we can move that gravel back to enable more mixing locally.
Thanks. Just to further clarify that, then, when you talk about short term, is there a likelihood that can be addressed in this coming summer season, or are we looking at a number of years before it might be able to be addressed?
Some of that will depend on, I couldn't 100% guarantee it because it would depend on the consent requirements. Our aspiration is to address it before the summer season.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Like Councillor Hancock, I also had some questions around the housing standards on page 257, and I'd be interested to know while we're getting an answer to that, how many tenants we have who are living in units that don't meet the healthy home standard, and what the timeline is to get those units up to that standard. So if that could be included in the answer, I'd be grateful.
Sorry, I understand Bryce is online now. He's just messaged us. Bryce, are you able to speak to that now, or is that something you want to go back to?
No, yeah, I can speak to that. So out of our 430 odd dwellings, 334 of them don't meet the increased healthy homes standards. So there's essentially four major components that are assessed: insulation, draft stopping, ventilation, and heating. All of our units meet the or exceed the standards for insulation and draft stopping. There is a little bit of work over those 334 that needs to be done in terms of increasing the heating capacity, so replacing the heaters. So they all have heaters right now. I just want to be very clear on that. And there is also ventilation in place. It's just whether it meets the new increased standard. So it's those two areas that we'll be focusing on over the next sort of 18 months, 2 years. The timeline, we'll be looking to bundle this up and go out for tender in the next couple of months to be engaging a supplier who can also do the install as well. And through that process, we'll also get an idea of rollout program and how they're going to be making their way through it. Obviously, with 334 tenants, that does require a little bit of logistical coordination. And aside from that as well, the other consideration is there may be some long lead-in times in terms of materials, in terms of heat pumps and things that we're ordering in, and I won't know that until we sort of go out through that tender process. But definitely we've had every single one of our units assessed, and have a very strong idea now of exactly what the situation is. The other consideration, and just to quickly build on that as well, is we do have a requirement if a unit comes vacant that we have 90 days to be dealing with that. So we're also got provision in our program to be dealing with that as well. So any of the immediate ones that need to be dealt with, we've already ordered the products, so they'll be getting remedied shortly as soon as we're able, probably back in level 2 and onwards. And any new ones will be obviously removed from the greater rollout program and dealt with.
Okay, so just to follow that up, does that mean that we'll have a number of units out of action at any one time while they're being upgraded?
It should be a relatively simplistic upgrade. So, for instance, the current heating that's in there, if we're replacing a gas heater with a heat pump, they can sort of be done in parallel, and we won't remove the old gas heater or disconnect it until the new heat pump is in. So a lot of that work is actually relatively unintrusive. If it ever is going to disrupt the tenant's livability, we'll be factoring that into the program as well.
Okay, so council is the same as any other landlord in this respect, in that we have an immediate requirement as soon as a tenant moves out. We don't have any of the longer lead into achieve compliance that government has given itself for, say, Kainga Ora.
We do have an overall timeframe, which is 2023, that we're working towards, and the program will be timed accordingly, and that's when we have to be 100% compliant. However, there is that 90-day compliance if a property comes vacant that we have to deal with in a much more urgent sense.
Okay, and so has the Otago warrant of fitness standard also changed?
Yes, it's increased with the new increased standards.
Right, okay. Thank you. I have got another question, if that's okay, about something else, which is about the footpath. Comment on page 245 around the assessment of footpaths and the fact that I think it was 95% of them, 95.5% meet council standard. And so I wonder what the time frame is to bring the remaining 4.5%, which would appear to be quite a lot, 25 kilometres, up to the council standard. What time frame are we looking at for that? Sorry, can you hear me?
That's Sarah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, through the chair. I know that well, let me start by saying everything that we can say about footpaths at the moment is caveated by the not understanding yet of when the NZTA Whakakatahi funding is available. The actual footpath time frame is quite an extended time frame. I'll pass it on to Sandra if she's there.
Yes, hello councillors, I'm here. My apologies. Could you please repeat the question? I missed that.
Well, it was a question around what the timeline is to bring the remaining footpaths that don't meet the grades of 1, 2 or 3. In other words, the footpaths that are graded 4 and 5. What's our timeline to bring them up to our standard?
I think last time in the last quarterly report, Robert mentioned that we would be around 4 to 5 years away from bringing them up to standard. So I've yet to do some analysis on the current condition survey data that we have to figure out that time frame given the budgets we have. But as Sarah pointed out, we have we're waiting on Whakakatahi funding, which we will hope to have next week to make some analysis on how this is going to impact our program going forward.
Okay, there was a comment somewhere else in the report, I don't have the page number right now, where it said that contractors had got a bit behind on the footpath repair and that Fulton Hogan were going to be dealing with the backlog backlog, is that separate to this, or does that feed into this as well?
No, that feeds into it. Fulton Hogan will be taking over the program of works as part of their contract, and they're preparing that program as we speak. So we're hoping to be able to manage that backlog with the contract we have in place with Fulton Hogan, subject to budgets, of course.
Okay, I did put in a councillor help question about this some time ago. Obviously, with COVID, it hasn't been responded to, but I'd appreciate some more detail around this because it is an area that we are constantly asked about by residents, and it'd be good to have some up-to-date facts and figures. Thanks.
Yes, my apologies. I do have that councillor request, so it's sitting with me, Lorna, and I'll make sure we address that going forward.
Thank you. That's it for my questions. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you. Just left with one, I think, but the same page, 245, at the top element. So we're on strategic transport, roading activity, performance measures around requests for service relating to roads and footpaths. And there's in the comments, it just says, sorry, I'm reading sideways off my screen. In the comments, it says managers will identify and seek an amendment to the KPI to reflect this. So, and I recall that we've had this conversation in previous reports, that we're not meeting the standard and we're just going to change the standard so that we do meet it. I'm sure entirely appropriately. So I was just seeking a comment about how that will happen in a transparent way.
Yes, through the chair, we still have some work to do in this space to identify. It's about criticality of requests for service coming in, and we're managing that with our new Fulton Hogan contract in terms of looking at how we're responding to those requests and the timing of it. So we do have a little bit of work to do to analyse it and understand how we can improve it, and whether we need to think about levels of criticality in terms of urgency down to lower priority type work. I hope that answers your question. It's still some work to do.
And how will that come through the chamber, Sandra?
If there is a change to the KPI, then we'll have to bring that through the chamber. If we can navigate it without a change to the KPI, then we'll implement that through our operational processes. Sarah, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, just that what we're really aiming to do is make sure that we can get a rapid response to things that are dangerous or massively problematic without and thereby prioritise things that are less of an issue to a longer time frame than 3 days.
Yep. Thank you. That answers the question, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Dingwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a similar question to Councillor Bowen, but it's on page 243 around number 2, which is the ratio of lower quartile home price to median household income. Sorry, also reading sideways, because it talks in there about the last measurements come from MB's indicators from 2019. From HUD's indicators in 2019, and I was wondering if there is a way for us to get more accurate data around that, or because it says we need to change KPIs, or just wondering what the process is to get more accurate data on that particular point, rather than constantly having a blank line there that doesn't actually tell us anything.
Yeah, hi, Councillor Dingwell. It's David here. I assume you can hear me all right. There is quarterly NPS monitoring, which Peter Crawford undertakes as well. So I just have to follow that up with him and see what the data issue is and whether we can provide some additional information in that space.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, I think we have, Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just did have one follow-up question just related to the item that Councillor Bowen had raised. It was one that I raised a few meetings ago myself. And it's that one, it's the performance measure on page 245 in terms of the response to queries. Now, when I raised this last time, I asked the question because what it does say is that people should be responded to with at least an initial formal response within 3 working days. And so there's quite a significant differentiation between communicating with people and actually carrying out the work. And there has been a significant amount of feedback and conversation about the need to communicate appropriately with people, whether the work's getting done or not, that they're actually told, that they're responded to and told if it's going to get done and what the potential time frame for that's going to get done. So I guess what I'm asking is, will that be clarified as to whether that performance measure is talking about the communication only, or whether it's talking about the delivery of the work?
Yes, through the chair, Councillor Naylor, I can answer that. You're absolutely correct. The response to communicate whether it's being programmed or whether it's actually being done is quite different. It might be that the query that comes up is going to be a 3-month program. So we have to clarify and make absolutely clear what the timeframes are about communicating to customers about their query and where it's programmed, how it's being received, and where it is in the system. That's part of the work that I need to do in this space.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Stuart, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just because I have an answer to the first question that was asked around what's our current debt level, and as of today, it's $167 million.
Okay, thank you. Right, councillors, no more questions there of the team. I suppose I've just got one final one. It's only because it's got red ink on it. It is really around that supply of land, and maybe this one, Stuart, is to David Murphy, is just that land, getting that land to market. Are we relatively comfortable we're going to meet all those targets? Because there's a bit of red ink, but further out.
Yep, we are reprioritising all the resources we have relative to other priorities to advance those housing projects. So obviously we've got the Whiskey Creek private plan change, but there's a significant amount of resourcing going into Akotiri, Kakatangiata, Ashurst and Roxburgh Crescent at the moment. Appreciate they've been due to come to council, but there has been, I guess with Kakatangiata, it's obviously a very significant area. There's been some issues emerging at Akotiri that we're just finalising, but that's very close to being ready for committee. So I can assure you of the resources we have, housing is being prioritised. There's some work we're doing with Tremaine Ave at the moment, some undeveloped land there, there's a few issues which need to be addressed in part 2, which will be coming to council shortly as well.
Okay, good. All right. Andrew Boyle's online. You've got your hand up.
Yeah, hello, councillors. Just to confirm that in the 10-year plan adopted last month, that roading KPI was changed to focus on critical and safety KPIs, request for service.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so councillors, we have the quarterly report. Thank you, Stuart and the team that have pulled that together for the quarter ending 30 June. We have 2 recommendations. Thank you, Natalia. Oh, sorry. There's an extra one. Okay, so I'll just get my screen a little bit bigger, just a moment. That's a bit better. So we have resolutions to council there around the quarterly performance and financial report for the quarter ending 30 June 2021. At the report titled Quarterly Performance and Financial Report Quarter ending 30 June 2021, presented to council on 1 September 2021 be received. 2, that council notes that the capital expenditure carry forward values in the LTP 2021 to 22 will be increased by 2.44 million. Capital revenue will be increased by 562,000 and operational expenditure will be increased by 131,000 as per the details in Appendix 4 of the report. Number 3, that Council notes that capital expenditure carry forward values in the 2021-22 long-term plan budget relating to the 3 water reform funding be increased by 1.74 million. Capital revenue will be increased by 1.74 million. Operational expenditure will be increased by 744,000, and operational revenue will be increased by 744,000 as per the details in Appendix 4 of this report. Look, I'm quite happy to move those, and seconded by the Deputy Mayor. I'll go to any comments. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And look, once again, a really comprehensive report that gives us really good information about where the organisation's at. And I think a really positive result in terms of being 4 million favourable against budget with what was a year that had a lot of uncertainty around it. I think that's a really significantly positive result. So well done to everyone for that. I guess the one area that I am quite focused on at the moment in terms of where the organisation's at, and I'm sure it will be, perhaps we'll get further information next time we get a health and safety report, is that level of vacancies in the organisation. And I think if it's around 140, that's significant. And I'm hearing that some of those relate to new positions that are yet to be recruited to. But I'm also aware from our recent reports of significant amount of staff who are leaving the organisation, and I think that's something we need to keep a critical eye on. I suppose it is one of the indicators of a healthy, the health of the organisation. So we do need to, if that is shifting, then we do need to have an understanding of what the drivers of that change is. So certainly, I'm happy to be reassured by officers that we can get perhaps a clearer picture of that in the reporting going forward, and I look forward to that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Look, I have to agree. To have 140 vacancies is not great news in anybody's book. But look, there is some challenges out there for all organisations with skills and talent, and I suppose we're mixed up in that melting pot as well. Look, I'm sure the CE and the management team are working pretty hard to make sure that we're filling those roles, because it is, basically a fifth of the organisation. So it means we're not at full, we're not driving at full speed, basically. Look, I have to say it's been a good quarter. The financial results of a $4 million surplus that goes back into debt repayment is really good news, and should be acknowledged. So well done to the wider team with a really challenging year too. So it's extra special, and it just means that we keep, even if it's only 4 million, it still comes off the bottom line, and it's really, really helpful because we still have to be as efficient as we possibly can. So, councillors, we have the resolutions there. It's going to be a challenge going forward, but we are starting off from a reasonable good base. So if you could please support the recommendations. Natalia, if we get those up, thank you, the 3 of those. Nobody's asked for a division, so we'll do that on the show of hands and voice. So we'll vote now. All those in favour? Aye.
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 Against? Abstain? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. We now go to number 17 on the order paper, councillors. It's page 305. That's the council work schedule. Natalia, could we just get that up, please? The actual work schedule itself, I don't have it in front of me. And do we physically have a copy of that anywhere? hunt it out. Just one moment. While I'm doing that, is there anybody that has any changes to that or matters arising from it? Councillor Hapata. Councillor Hapata?
Is the parking information going to be on the work schedule, the parking review? I can't see it on the work schedule.
Yeah.
Are you there? So we've got staff are working on a report back on the consultation on the change to the parking hours at the moment. So we're anticipating taking that subject to what happens with levels, etc., to the upcoming Finance and Performance Committee.
So it doesn't come to council?
It was originally going to come back to the September council meeting, I think the resolution was. However, staff working on that have been in the EOC, so there's been a slight delay. So it's still coming to or planned to come to a September committee, but it would be proposed to be the Finance and Performance Committee.
So
which is where the work originated from.
The September.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, David. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hancock.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's just a query really, just around the representation review with our current lockdown situation with COVID-19. Is there any sort of timeline implications for us on that?
I think we asked that question last week, but we'll go back to Hannah. Can you answer that?
Certainly can, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, no changes from last week. Full steam ahead. Submissions are still coming in, and we're still meeting the legal timeframes required, which haven't changed.
Okay, good. All right, Natalia, if we could get the could we get the thank you, the recommendation back up there. Just get rid of one part of the screen. Right, so we have the council receives its work schedule for September 2021. I'll look to move that. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. No other. If you can take your hand down there, Councillor Hancock. I don't think there's any other comments to this or matters arising. We'll do a vote by voice and show of hands. So we'll vote now. All those in favour?
Aye.
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 Against? Abstain? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Right, councillors, we will now move to vote on going to part 2. So, Natalia, if I could just have that up, please. Thank you. So, recommendation to go to exclude the public and we will, that the public be excluded from the meeting. I look to move that, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. And again, nobody's asked for a division, so we will do that by hands and voice. So all those in favour?
Aye.
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 Against? Abstain? That's passed unanimously. So look, thank you, councillors. We will now log off and log back on to the other meeting invite. To the public online, thank you very much for viewing online. To staff involved and everybody involved, thank you very much. Kia ora, everybody, and I'll see you in